This episode of From Angel to Exit is brought to you by Align 5. Align 5 specializes in mergers and acquisitions for growth-focused entrepreneurs and family businesses. With decades of buy and sell side experience, they prioritize client alignment, avoiding conflicts of interest common in other firms. Align 5 delivers above average industry results by customizing strategies for diverse industries, ensuring optimal valuations and securing strategic acquisitions or exit partners. If you want to find out more, check out align5.com. That's align5.com. And now, on to our episode. Are you serious about planning a successful business exit? From Angel to Exit is your go-to resource. Subscribe to our newsletter at eckfeldt.com/podcast for even more valuable insights. And to get personalized guidance, take our free exit readiness assessment. It's just 24 questions, and it will give you a clear picture of your exit readiness. Find the assessment at eckfeldt.com/exit. Submit your results, and we'll schedule a free follow-up call to discuss your specific situation and the best way to maximize your valuation and ensure a successful transaction. Now, back to the episode. Welcome, everyone. This is From Angel to Exit, where we talk with leaders about their stories around growing and scaling and exiting their businesses. I'm excited for the conversation today. Our guest is Shawn Freeman, and he's had some really interesting experiences, both as a founder, as an entrepreneur, and exiting his company. He's doing some really interesting stuff today in terms of helping leaders manage their technology as well. So we're going to hear about that. But really excited for this. Some really interesting kind of experiences that I think most of the folks here listening will get some real insights from. So with all that, Shawn, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on, Bruce. Nice to be here.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. So before we dig into everything you're doing today and hear kind of about how things have turned out, would love to kind of go back, get a little bit of the background, really kind of hear the story as a founder. I guess, what were the beginnings like, and how did you kind of get into this space? And then we can talk a little bit about the process and what you learned.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go way back.
Yeah.
So, through university, I took computer science. Kind of stumbled my way into that. High school, I didn't have great grades, and eventually found my way to computers, and was like, I love this, and this is what I enjoy doing. And grades started to get better, and I started to really have fun. So university, I got a couple summer jobs. One was in the IT department at an oil company.
Okay.
And that went well. Learned a lot. And later in my university years, I moved to another oil company, and they were kind of a startup. They went from, I was employee like 100. Okay. After I left about 4.5 years later, and they were 1,600 people. So we grew a lot. Yeah. So being through that growth was like pretty awesome to learn and to just figure out how to scale a company and see it be done. And just met a whole bunch of great people along the way. Mm-hmm. And so once I got to like that 4.5 year stage, I was like, I kind of would like to, progress my career. I was pretty young at the time, like 24, 25. And I said, I kept putting my hand up for all these roles that were going out. The IT department grew from 2 people, me and my boss, in 2011 all the way to, when I started all the way to 2011, it was 50 people in IT. And so,
that's big.
What ended up happening, I kept getting passed up for these like more senior roles that they were looking for people that had been there and done that. And so I said, I'm not just going to sit here and do my job and get little promotions along the way. I said, okay, I'm going to, maybe I'll take a chance. I'll start my own IT company. And so actually I got a few clients just through some friends while I was still at work. And I was like, I'll just do it in my free time, do it after hours. And, so I did that for a little bit, and it just started to snowball. And so I kind of got pushed out of my job by this because I was like, I can't do both, and I didn't feel good. So I was like, okay, I'll leave my job. I'll take a chance, and worst case, I can get another job. And it did work out. Luckily, I left in 2011 to start the company, and then in 2012 there was a big oil recession, and so no jobs were to be found. So I was off to the races. I was doing it on my own, and then the rest is history. That was 2011. We exited in 2020, so about it was 8.5 years, exact math, and grew the company up, and yeah, we had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah. So I'm curious at that point when you decided to start the side hustle and get things going, did the concept or the idea of actually exiting that business, was that in your mind? Was that a particular goal that you had? What expectations did you have for yourself around this?
Yeah, not at all. I had no idea it was possible. I wish I did, because I would have done much better tax planning and paid a lot less tax at the end of the day. But that's okay. You live and you learn. And it's funny. I don't think even my accountants didn't realize it. Like we didn't have any basic tax stuff. So once I started to kind of get going, and we're doing $500,000 revenue, they're like, maybe we should do a little reorg and put a whole co in place and a few little basic tax things. Probably could have done more, but yeah, I didn't believe that we'd get it to like $5 million a year and sell for 1.4 revenue. Like we did pretty good numbers. And it's funny, like when I started the company, managed services wasn't really even a thing.
Interesting. Okay.
Everybody out there was
it's a big thing now. I mean, they're all sorts of, I mean, this is a huge space that you have all these kind of roll-ups around and stuff. So
yeah, and what it was in 2011 was break fix. Everybody just be like, oh, I'll hire an IT guy, put him on a retainer, he'll bill me hourly.
Yep.
And I came out and said, I'm not doing that at all. I went into my customers and said, well, I'm probably going to need to spend this much time on your tech, so why don't we just call it $2,000 a month? Right. And so I kind of fumbled my way into managed services from the get-go, which really was a key for us to grow, because as you can imagine, recurring revenue is much easier to grow a business on than lumpy hourly billing. And so that was one gift that, I'm not sure why I did it.
I was going to ask why you did it.
This makes sense. It's just like, well, more, revenue that I can count on is probably better than revenue that I can't. So it just worked out that way. And then, ever since then, everybody's been doing it that way. And it's been great. I mean, the industry, I'm telling people today, I'm like 5 years ago, like 3/4 of our cost was fixing things. They just broke, computers sucked, software wasn't great. And now 3/4 of it is security. Things work, but they get hacked into now. You got a lot more vulnerabilities with cloud and that sort of thing, right? So it's shifted a lot, and some people have kept up, some haven't. Some businesses have not been able to transform using technology, and so they may have gone away. But
I'm curious on the growth side. When did you first kind of start making some hires, and how did you kind of go from, being the primary doer of things to actually having other people doing things and getting into management and the leadership? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, that was because I'm a tech guy, right? So it was a fun journey. I don't have business experience, and for me, I was doing all the work. I was pretty much full all the time, like fully busy. And I went to my accountant, and making a few $100,000 in revenue, which is great, and pocketing most of it because I'm the guy, right, doing all this work. And I went to my accountant. I'm like, when do I hire? Like, tell me what my financials need to say for when to hire. He's like, well, you kind of just hire and you hope it works out, is what he said to me. He's like, you hope the business grows to support that. And it's funny, when he said that to me, the answer I needed actually was, well, once you have predictable sales. So if I was looking at my business and said, okay, I can close another $200,000 in recurring revenue in the next 6 months, that can pay for somebody. I won't be able to do it myself. Okay, we need to hire when that happens. And so I started to kind of fumble my way through this clarity. I did actually have a business coach that I had reached out to on LinkedIn. I was like, maybe I need a business coach. So I reached out to him on LinkedIn and asked him, I'm like, hey, can I buy you lunch? I was like, I can't afford you right now. You're a few grand a month, and I can't afford that, but I'd love your insights. And so he gave me a ton of great insights, how to understand my numbers, how to really kind of dig into that and get the insight I needed to make that call. It's funny, once you start hiring, it doesn't slow down. It just speeds up from there, right? You get comfortable with it. As your business grows, obviously you get a bigger buffer to make more mistakes, and they don't put you out of business.
Yeah, they're not
on the street.
existential.
They still pay your rent. Yeah.
And Tell me about leadership, because I think that's the other kind of big step that I think most companies kind of have to kind of grow through, which is actually hiring a team around you to actually grow and scale the company. Like, when did you feel yourself needing to create, other leaders inside the business around sort of different functions and different domains, and how did you make that decision?
Yeah, good question. Really, it's about getting out of your own way. I found that as soon as I started to do that, get the right people on board, build the right culture around them, and then kind of instill some values, that we really just started to hit our stride. I didn't have to be the one making all the decisions once we had those things in place. People felt empowered, that it's like, oh, I can make this call because I know that's how Shawn would think about it, and he's giving me the tools to really work through the problem myself. And I found that, once you do that, you start to get the best out of people. People that were like kind of really introverted and maybe kind of, not super outspoken, they started to build this confidence and become these leaders in the business, right? And so, my job as the CEO just was to kind of mentor them along and help them grow into those roles and at the same time grow the company. So,
When did you know? Was there a point or something that came up, or what really kind of told you that, I need to hire some other leaders in the business? Like, what happened for you, or when did you make that realization?
Well, when we sold, we were about 25 people at the time, and so kind of going from myself to 25, really somewhere in there, you need to hire key people to run the business. I found that it kind of was quite natural and organic in our business. Some people just stepped up and said like, oh, I can lead that group of clients, and I'll kind of make that my responsibility, and then I'll lead that group of clients. So we didn't have like a hierarchy. We kept it fairly flat still, but people knew their accountabilities were. We kind of operated sort of like lawyers and accountants.
Yeah. Okay.
We got our book of business. We'll make sure they're good. We've got, these other people have theirs. And that got us to 25. I don't think it would have maybe scaled as much. We would have had to add another layer on top of those folks eventually. But really it's about how do you, you don't want to put managers in place, for the sake of having babysitters, right? If you need babysitters, then you need new people. And I find that that's a bit of the mentality that we built into our culture, is like, if I have to babysit you, you're going to be out the door in 2 months, right? Like, you're not going to last. And so just instilling that in our little small business really helped the culture and the quality of the company. Yeah.
So when did the idea first kind of come to you that you might be able to actually exit this business, sell this business? Like, what was there a moment? There was a situation? Was there a conversation? Like, when did it come into your mind?
Yeah, it was. I was always friendly with most of our competitors that were trying to do a good job, and one of them was out of a different city, Vancouver. They didn't have operations in my city, Calgary, and so we're just like, hey, let's share some ideas. If you're in Calgary, let me know. We'll grab a drink and lunch. I did the same. So we connected, and eventually they came to me and they said, well, we've acquired companies across North America. Okay. We've got a location in every city in Canada other than Calgary. Do you want to be part of the growth, right? And here's our vision. We want to go public. We want to do this. It kind of got my attention, obviously, and I said, okay, well, let's explore it, right? Our cultures look good. They kind of seem compatible. We both have similar values, and this could open up opportunity for the team as well, right? We go from 25. They were 350 at the time, so now we're close to 400 total. My good leaders can step into bigger leadership positions and make a bigger impact, and they also kind of looked up to us because we actually were doing an amazing job on the quality of our service delivery. Our clients were like super happy. I was sort of the mindset, I'm like, I could post my client list and my competitors will just waste their time. Yeah. Right. And that was kind of how good we were. And which is amazing. Like we accomplished that, and they noticed it and they wanted it. So So we went through the details. They put a fair offer forward, which kind of let me know that they wanted to get a deal done.
Yeah.
And we put a deal together and set the team up for success. Everybody got options once we closed, but like all these things really came together.
Yeah. Did you, did you feel the need to kind of look at options at that point, or, kind of test the market to see if there were other people that were interested in doing this kind of deal? Like how competitive or how broad did you look at that point?
Yeah, no, we didn't shop it around, which is, some people might be like, well, you're kind of dumb for not doing that. But actually talking to people, we got 1.4 times revenue, which was 7 times EBITDA for a $5 million company. I think we did good.
Yeah.
We did pretty good.
I think that's an interesting kind of comment or kind of situation of, the reason to shop it around is, because you don't feel you want to test the market, you want to see what the best price is, but also like you want to feel good about the deal, right? Yeah. And I guess what other than the kind of the good financials or a reasonable multiple that we're putting on the table, like what else told you like this was a deal that you wanted to do? Yeah.
It was about the opportunity that we were creating. We were going to grow the company IPO. I kept some shares in the deal, so I took part of it cash, part of it shares, and that worked out great too. And so it wasn't just like, hey, we're going to buy you and then you're leaving a year later. It was like, at the time I was 34, right, when I sold the company. So I wasn't retiring, regardless of the number. And so I thought that was a really good deal. Plus, layer in the opportunities for the team for them to grow, because that was one of the big things for me, is that we're a 25-person company. Yeah, people have been with us for 5, 6, 7 years, and they want to go from here to here, and we're probably going to be slower at getting them there, and then we might lose them. And so that, for me as a business owner, was a bit of a fear that I had in my head. I was like, well, if we don't do this, we might lose these people anyway. And then what happens, right? Who knows? Where's my value? And so I was like, okay, well, this kind of solves all those problems, and potentially the upside of the vision that we had to grow the entire business was pretty cool. So it made sense. And then, like I said, when I first started the business, I said, well, I could go get another job. Well, when I sold this, I said, well, I could go start another one. Right? Like once you've started a business and scaled it to 5 million, it's kind of like you could do another one to 2 or 3 in a year or two, right? It becomes a lot easier. Your perspective changes. Obviously, you have resources in the bank to do so, right? Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that kind of growth for the team, because I think I run into a lot with companies who are, kind of hesitant to grow, or they're kind of this, well, we're fine just kind of doing 10-15% a year, and we don't want to screw up the culture. Right? There's all these kind of rationales for just kind of staying the same. And one of the big things I think they don't realize is that if they're not growing, they're not creating opportunities for people, and you will lose. Good people want challenge. They want to grow. They want opportunities. And I guess, when did you realize that, or how did that occur to you that growth was an imperative in terms of being able to maintain and retain the talent that you had?
Yeah, I mean, for context sake, if you're growing a business at 10 or 20%, that's pretty good. But again, it's not those like step increments where you need another layer of management every 5 years, right? So the people that are looking for that, you might lose them. Yeah. I think my perspective has changed since I did the deal. I think that was something I was actually telling myself as a reason I had to do the deal. Not saying that I regret doing the deal, but I think I see it for what it was now. And I think the more healthy approach in my current perspective is I need to plan. In my business, I need to plan to lose good people. Like I need to understand that if I'm going to grow 10 or 20%, I'm probably not going to be able to make all of their dreams come true. Right? If I can, amazing. But again, like you can only control so much in your business. So you got to kind of pick like, hey, do we want to grow organically? Do we want to acquire some business so that we can grow faster? There's lots of different ways. And then how does the team fit into that, right? Really getting to know each of their goals and say like, hey, what's your 5-year goal? You want to buy a house, you want to buy a vacation property, you want to have this much savings. If you can like engineer that backwards into the business's plans, then that person's going to stay for at least 5 years, right? If you don't see that being possible, then you kind of have to start figuring out like, okay, either have a conversation like, hey man, this like, it's not going to work. We could compensate you maybe in some equity, but that's a longer term plan. That's not a 5-year plan. And just get creative. I think, and the other thing too, I talked to so many business owners like, I'm going to lose my best person. I'm like, you should probably plan to.
Yeah, exactly. You should have a plan if you do.
Like plan to lose them.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be, as a business owner, don't want to be in handcuffs.
Yeah.
To say like your top person leaves and you have to like double their salary because Google's going to, right? Like you can't compete with Google. And then on the flip side is just make sure that your vision is big enough to align with your team's goals.
Yeah.
Right. If that's true, then you've got a really good start. If your vision's like, oh, we're gonna grow 5% a year and we're gonna go from 1 million to 2 in 10 years, that probably doesn't check a lot of boxes for your team because that's not a lot of volume, revenue, and profit, right? So you're not going to be able to pay them more, and then you're going to have a problem, right? But if your goal is to like, hey, we want to do this 25 million in 10 years, and along the way, you're going to get some ownership in the company, and in 10 years, you're going to have hit all your goals that you want. Perfect. Then you've got a winning combination.
Yeah. When the deal actually sort of first came to you, or you're sort of looking at the initial conversations, how did you relay this to the team, or how do you communicate and message this to the team? When did you do it? These things going to be a little dicey, right? It's like, hey, look, we might be selling, but we might not be selling. Like, we need to keep the business going. We might be changing. How did you manage that process?
Yeah, very poorly, as my team would probably tell you. So I had my EA at the time, my office manager. She collected a lot of the due diligence information, so she was on the in, and that's it. Nobody else on the team knew until the deal was closed. So deal closed. I guess why? What was your thinking, or what was going on for you around doing it that way? Yeah, honestly, not very much good thinking. If looking back, I probably would have brought them in and said, "Hey guys, how does this sound to you? Here's my thoughts." I had full control of the company, so I could have done whatever I wanted. But it's funny, I'm not sure why I did that. It was probably a fear that they were going to say no, we don't want to sell, and then I would have to like either convince them or drag them unwillingly. And they've had a whole year to kind of look for another job, right? You know what I mean? Like all the risk that would have been brought in, and so I didn't really go down that path. But I think it's my perspective again has changed. I think now it's kind of now everyone's like, what are we going to sell, right? Like if you start another company, they're just gonna be like, are you going to sell this one, right? Like everybody just asks, this is the first question they ask you now, and it's kind of funny, but I think it's good to have that conversation internally. And I would say like we had a great mission, we had great values, we had a great culture, but I didn't have that open conversation around like, well, what's the future of this look like? Because honestly, up until they came and approached me in April of 2019, and by January we had the deal closed. It was supposed to close in November, but obviously they always take longer than you hope. And so that's the thing, is it moved fairly quick. And so, I maybe just thought I didn't have time and was afraid of, having some backlash, which, some people weren't really happy. We settled into it and things were okay for COVID hit 2 months later. So the company that bought us just said, keep doing what you're doing, keep making lots of money, and we'll leave you alone. Once that changed, things changed significantly, and wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Well,
so let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that's always kind of the fear or the anxiety that people have around doing deals, particularly something like this where you're staying on, you're going to continue to be in leadership and management and having to work with the acquirer. I guess what what did you anticipate, or how did you think it was going to go when you were kind of doing the deal, and what did you anticipate? Let's start there, and then we can kind of talk about how things played out.
Yeah, like I thought the vision that the company had that was acquiring us for us to like grow this and potentially go public was a great vision. I thought they had the things in place to achieve that vision. The other thing too is like I could see the future for the team. I could say like, oh, these people can move into these positions. We even mapped part of that out in part of the deal making. We said, okay, these people go into that leadership position. So we kind of had that figured out. We, made sure they all got options. And so it was really, and from my perspective, I was like, well, I can kind of see the 3-year plan being great for all of them, regardless if we went public or not. And yeah, I think that all the boxes checked off, and I hadn't been through anything like it before. So,
So it sort of made sense logically when you were doing it.
Yeah, it made sense logically. I'm a very logical guy, and so yeah, any of those fears that I had, and like the fears of like if I didn't do it, then I'd maybe lose these people anyway.
Yeah.
Like those things I didn't really acknowledge, I suppose, until after the deal. And that makes sense. I mean, that's just how our brains work when we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah. No, you're the best you can. And so, you mentioned COVID hit, which I'm sure threw, all sorts of monkey wrenches into, plans and stuff. But how did things play out? And I guess what were the surprises, right? Like in terms of, in the reality of, merging or doing, post-deal, working out, the issues, working out leadership, working out operations, like what came up for you?
So COVID hit, and the company that bought us just said, keep doing what you're doing. You know what you're doing a great job. Financials are great, so keep doing that. So we did. And they gave us the freedom to really kind of do what we thought we needed to do. And a lot of our clients, like they were shut down, their revenue went to zero overnight. And so we said, hey, we're going to just pause your billings. Let us know when things are picking back up. We'll slowly kind of reintroduce them. And so we actually had the freedom to kind of do what we thought was right. And actually I thought everybody else was like afraid. And I was in this unique position where I just like got some big checks and I'm like, well, this is actually a pretty good opportunity for us to step up and help, right? Like we're in a really good spot. I'm in a really good spot. And I said, okay, how do we help? So we went to all our clients. We said, what do you need? Like, are things good? Some of them things were great. They needed help to scale. Some of them needed help scaling down. And so we said, okay, let's help. We'll meet you where you're at. And we did that. And I think the team really saw that and was kind of fired up about that too, because they're like, on the other side of the acquisition, and now we still have the freedom to do that. And we're not just like, no, you have to pay your bill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We want to hit some earnout, but we didn't care, right? And so, not that we had an earnout, and it's funny, we almost hit it, but we're like, what the more important thing is taking care of our clients. And so we were still able to like follow our values that we had built up, which was really cool. And I think once COVID kind of settled, the company that acquired us, they saw that we were doing things really great, and they said, we don't want to break what you're doing. Like, tell us what your secret sauce is. Let's build that out in other places. What really surprised me is that the resistance of the other parts of the business to trying things that we had built up and proven, because we were a $5 million company coming into a $50 million company, right? So I found that there was a lot of like, that's not scalable, right? So that was a very frequent reason we got to say like, oh, we can't do that because it's not scalable.
And was there logic to it, or was this just pure that
so
we didn't?
I think
it's not in our backyard kind of thing.
Yeah, like I think it just wasn't their idea, and they weren't comfortable with it, and maybe didn't fit their pricing model. Like we charged more per user than all of their customers. Like all of our customers were paying a lot more than their customers were.
Okay.
And so that disconnect of we were selling a premium service and they were selling a market average service, right? And so maybe like looking back, I think it was scalable. The price point just wasn't there for them to make money at that.
Yeah.
And I'm always a long player kind of guy. So I look at it like, okay, well, if we did scale it and lost money short term, well, how many referrals are you going to get because you're providing much better service, right? And then, about maybe 2.5 years into the acquisition, pretty much every idea I threw out there, not scalable. Oh, your clients aren't happy now because we put in our process instead of the one you were using. And I said, they kept asking me like, how do we fix this? And I said, go back to what we were doing.
What worked.
And then at the point I was like, well, this whole, I've heard not scalable about 300 times. But I also think that losing most of your clients is also not scalable.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and at some point you just get to a point where you keep repeating yourself. And I remember being on a call and I said, I feel like a broken record. Mm-hmm. I could just forward you the email I sent last time with my recommendations, which you've done none of, and just see attached as per my last email, right? The whole meme, and it's at that point is the point I knew it's like, I gotta go. Yeah. Because I'm just not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
They're obviously not buying the things I'm saying anymore. So maybe they just don't trust that I know what I'm doing. But either way, I'm out. And so I left.
And was that hard? Was that a, I guess, difficult decision either personally or financially, or like how easy was that?
Yeah, I mean, personally, and the thing I always go back to is I said to myself, when I stop caring, I'll leave.
Okay.
And that's exactly when I stopped caring, because, they kept asking, what do we do? How do we fix this? And I kept saying ideas and saying them in different ways, and then trying to put some sugar coating on them, and hey, let's try this out. Maybe it's not scalable short term, but we'll at least save the customer for now. And none of those things kind of really came across. And so then I was like, okay, I just don't care anymore, because caring apparently isn't working, right? And so, I'm not going to if I want to talk to a corner, I'll go talk to a corner, right? And so I think for me, it was actually like a really freeing decision. I just wasn't in a great place going to work every day. I was just like, it's just an act of frustration now. And financially I was fine. So I was like, I'm out of here, and off we go. Yeah. And my team, we'd been, 3 years in the integration, so they were all set up in their positions in the scalable company.
Yeah,
so,
they were good.
So I felt good there too.
Yeah. Yeah. I always said, like, whatever deal you end up doing, and anything you're leaving on the table, you should be okay walking away from, because otherwise you get in this mind of, like, you're no longer in control. Like, once you sell, once you exit, right, you don't have complete control over your destiny. And if you're needing whatever money is left on the table, you're going to be in a bind. You're not going to be happy. So
yeah. And honestly, the company, it's funny, the company acquiring us, you started to see these pockets of people that were afraid of your ideas, right? Because they had their own, and they were their babies, right? And so navigating that human aspect of it was really, obviously, I think, the trickiest part, and why certain things didn't work.
Yeah.
I remember one of my people became the manager of a department, and overnight, most of the people left that were at the old company, because they're like, and I know why, because he was going to hold them accountable. Yeah, exactly. They weren't just going to get to skate by with bare minimum anymore, and that was funny. And at the end of the day, it's kind of these two organizations coming together, and one's fighting the other, and you see all these friction points, right? And everybody's all at the same time saying, oh, we're all steering in the same direction, we're all rowing in the same direction, but really the people are trying to protect themselves, right? And so once you start to lose that, just that psychological safety of your job's okay, that's okay, but let's listen to some new ideas here. We never got to that point, and I think that's this is just a values thing and a leadership thing. I think it comes from the top. Leaders need to be able to say like, look, let's try these ideas out. We can pilot program this, right? But yeah, we never got any of our non-scalable things piloted.
Yeah. I guess looking back, what do you feel like? Like 2 or 3 things that you feel like you either intentionally or accidentally did well in terms of how you kind of set up the company, structured the company, choices you made that really helped with the exit process, either in terms of valuation or in terms of getting the deal done or the terms of the deal or navigating the early integration process. What are 2 or 3 things that you can kind of reflect back on that you kind of pat yourself on the back saying, oh yeah, these were good moves?
Yeah, I think really just, I could probably go write my CPA exam right now. Just like understanding the financials deep, right? And understanding, accrual accounting and, making sure all your assets are on your balance sheet and you don't just expense a $5,000 thing here and there, right? Like all that stuff makes money later when you go to sell because, your numbers look appropriate. They look how they should. And you haven't made those mistakes along the way. I think that was really like from a tech guy perspective. I've had bookkeepers change and come on, and one like made a comment. She's like, "Oh, like this stuff. You should be an accountant." I'm like, "No, I
don't want to be an accountant.
I'm not that crazy." Like, and so just knowing your numbers, like to have the confidence, right? Because it's funny, like back to that, like how did you know when to hire? Like I had to get that confidence, and I think knowing my numbers was one part of it, and then knowing I could get sales was the second part. Marry those 2 things together, and I was off to the races, right? So being the analytical guy, overcoming my fears of like the unknown, right? Like some people just start a company and be like, oh, I'm hiring 10 people, and blah, 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 and like they're just burning cash, and they have no idea, and then they're gone in 3 years. And I wasn't going to run a business like that. Definitely more conservative on that front. We didn't have any debt. Like all these things, like the IT managed service business, you shouldn't need a lot of debt unless you're growing a lot. We didn't. We had 23% EBITDA. Like we had cash flow, no problem at all. So I think that's another part of the things that we did right. Obviously focusing on recurring revenue. We'd have prospects come to us and say, oh, we've got this project we want you to do. It's 20 grand. Can you do it? I said, do you want managed services? They'd say, no, we have an in-house team or we're happy with our company. They just don't know how to do this project. I said, well, sorry, I can't help you. Like if there's no recurring, then I didn't even care if it was 20 or 200. Like it's short term, I got to hire a team, then I got to fire the team to do that project, right? And pretty hard to do and keep the culture up, right? I think that's the third part is just to keep our culture solid and really build that psychological safety, right? We had such a flat organizational structure because we had like super high psychological safety. People could tell me I'm wrong and I'd love it. And we put their ideas in place. They'd bring up problems. They'd have to come with a solution. All these things that were super effective for us.
Yeah. And 1 or 2 things that you wish you would have done differently as you reflecting back on things?
Yeah, for sure. Way back to the start, understanding like if I could have known where I was going to go with it, getting a family trust set up, better tax planning would have been great. And then the other thing too, I'd probably start like an employee ownership program. So have my people have some skin in the game. Obviously, they're not going to own like 70% of the company, but give them some skin in the game, and then I'd say involve them in the decision to exit. Right, just sit down and say, and to have that perspective that like, if you have a company that's running today, you're going to exit it. So why not have a conversation with your team and say, how do we want to exit? What's our must-haves? What's our non-negotiables, and work together on that as if it was like another project. I think that would have been super awesome. It would have been fun to get their input, and I think they would have enjoyed the outcome better being involved in it.
Yeah, I always say, I mean, you're going to exit your business one way or another. It might be feet first, but it's like, you have to have some plan, right? It doesn't need to mean that you're going to take private equity or find a strategic, right? It might be turning it over to employees. It might be in the next generation, right? It might be winding down, right? You may just decide that at some point the business has run its course. But having having that conversation on a somewhat regular basis to kind of see where you're going can be hugely helpful in kind of planning.
For sure.
How has it affected the next business? Like as you've kind of gotten involved in new ventures, has this led into like just founding another business? Is this doing investing? Like how have you kind of springboarded from here into other ventures?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. I'd say my next primary venture is called Leaders Tech Academy. The gap I realized being an MSP is that the people buying that service typically are like, IT just lands on the CFO or the COO maybe. CEO doesn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
and that's a gap, right? Because you've got people that are really great at what they do, but they don't know how to manage technology. Yeah. And also, as a CEO in a company today, I want to be the one driving the technology vision.
Okay.
Right. So, and if I'm not, then who is? And if technology is not a part of our like overall company strategy, then is the company going to last a while, right? Like, is it going to have staying power? Or are we going to be able to keep up? Or are we just going to be catching up all the time? And so I built out this business, and I think there's a lot of opportunity there, just as people realize that, like my CFO is great at numbers and can raise money for us and can keep everything paid, but technology is just hire a vendor and a checkbox. Well, we're not really going to get as much as we can out of it. You can like 10x your spend on technology as an ROI if you do it properly, right? And so that's a big thing I see missing right now. And you can't just like rely on a vendor to do it for you. They're not in your business. They probably don't care as much as you do about your business, right? And so that's the number one key thing. And then, investing in other businesses. So I've invested in some other MSPs, and just really, I love the space. It keeps growing, and it has so much potential to make impact in the world out there. So
yeah. And what's your exit strategy on this one?
Yeah, the Leaders Tech Academy. Good question. It's pretty small right now.
Yeah.
There's 3 of us on the team, and I think the digital, just creating a solution and a product, and just teaching people the course and just building a community around it, I think is huge. I don't know if I would exit it. I think I think it has a long lifespan. Maybe look at some partnerships with some other kind of types of companies that really complement it. But I don't know if I want to exit that one. It's and it's also scalable. We have a course that people can do on their own time, and then they jump on the mastermind calls, and they can pick my brain anytime they want. They don't have to pay me $1,000 an hour. And so really it helps make it a lot more accessible for people too. Yeah.
That's great. Any last kind of 1 or 2 pieces of advice for listeners here that are kind of, running businesses and starting to kind of think about this process? What would you suggest that they do or they prioritize?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's funny looking back, if we're still running my company, I would probably try to work on my skill set around acquisition. Like, do we be the ones that acquire people? Yeah. Because that's a business in itself. Like, how do we do that right? Why do the financials matter? And how do we take our impact if we're doing something really special? And how do we grow that and be the leader of that, rather than, kind of, 3 people make you an offer and you take one, sort of thing, right? There's obviously they're acquiring for a good reason. And some of them is like it's a PE and they just need to grow it and then sell it, and they don't actually care about the customers. Yeah. So I think there's an opportunity to be that company that cares about the customers and wants to grow it and help people level up their game, and then just take care of the customers better, right? I think there's a really cool opportunity there.
That's great. Shawn, this has been a pleasure. If people want to find out more about you, answer questions, learn more about the Leadership Academy, what's the best way to get that information?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. Just look up Shawn Freeman. You'll find me there, and leaderstechacademy.com. We're doing a couple webinars this fall, so you could sign up for those. Just 90 minutes, nice and easy. So check those out. And look forward to talking to you. And thanks for the time, Bruce.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. I'll make sure all the information in the show notes. And thank you so much for taking the time today. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.